Right, hello everybody. This is Frank Norris here, and my friend, who are you?
Stan Johnson.
Hello. We've been friends for since September the 1st, 1995.
Yeah.
And we'll probably, if we carry on with these podcasts or these little programs, we'll tell you about the beginnings of our friendship. But anyway, we're going to spend 15 minutes or so once a week just mulling over some topical issues in education, and we hope you're going to find it helpful and interesting. When we put these up on YouTube, we would very much welcome your comments. Try and keep them clean and constructive, because that's what we're going to try and do on these podcasts.
And kind, Frank, kind.
Kind,
yeah. Kind comments.
I agree. Kindness, because we're going to find it difficult because we've come up with some ground rules here. That actually we're not going to slag anybody off. We're going to try and be positive. We're certainly going to be honest, and I think we're going to try and appreciate the difficulties which senior leaders, government ministers, and whatever teachers are facing at the moment. Because certainly these are troubled times, and I don't know about you, Stan. I never faced anything quite.
No, nothing like this. Nothing.
So what we're going to do is going to sort of take a topic every week and focus in on that, and then also just reflect on some of the news that's going on at the moment. So Stan, you were a primary head teacher, weren't you? And then you got into the advisory world, and then we met doing Ofsted work.
Yeah, I'm working for Ofsted. What was it? AIs in the original.
Yeah, was that additional inspectors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working directly with an HMI, which I think made a difference.
Yeah. I mean, I think it had quite a lasting impact on my thinking and the friendships that I developed in that year, and my understanding about outcomes certainly got a lot stronger.
Best thing we ever had that, surely, that 1 year.
Yeah, I agree. We must make sure we talk about that time, because I think it's quite impactful, really, in terms of my career, and I know it has been for you as well.
Yeah.
What we thought we'd do is we start the recording every week with something what caught your eye. I don't know. Do you want to kick off, Stan? What's caught your eye this week?
The starting point of this week, I suppose, was this morning seeing that the Ofsted of Amanda Spearman said that Ofsted probably won't be doing any inspections this summer.
Yeah.
Just had me thinking about where are schools this summer and where will they need to be for some kind of new normal.
Yeah, I saw that as well, and of course the brief for Ofsted is quite wide, isn't it? So there are still there's still elements around social care where there may be sort of allegations against particular institutions or particular departments in local authorities which may require investigation. But actually,
it was the inspections that she said.
Was it?
They've got lots of capacity because there's lots of HMI with not much to do, and schools aren't interested in having them in.
Yeah, I saw her last night on Newsnight, and she obviously tried to counter this sense that the HMIs were sort of idle, doing nothing, by saying that they were busy, which actually was a complete shift in sort of the message. And I suspect she was probably criticised for suggesting that they weren't doing anything. But I know some of the work I'm doing, I could do with a decent HMI to read a report that I've been writing for the last couple of days. That's one thing
I was going to say, that's one of the things that I learned from that year more than anything was how to lay out a piece of work, how to edit somebody else's work, probably. And the guy who used to read our reports, fantastic. I still hear him in my head when I'm writing stuff. I can't remember.
It was also the clarity of that person's thinking in terms of getting the message across very succinctly and with absolute clarity. So there was a sense of having to step back from the words to actually get a sense of what you're trying to say. Actually, I'm drawing on that now as I write these reports. So for me, quite a big day today because I'm on the education committee of the Northern Powerhouse Partnership, And I had an idea around how could we help disadvantaged students, particularly in secondary schools, get back so that there is a chance, they have a chance of catching up. So I developed a paper which has morphed into something called a learning tutor program, where we're trying to encourage government to look at university students who are in their second, third and fourth year, who we would hope would go back to university in the autumn, but perhaps a little bit later, because what we would like is in September and the beginning of October, that they're trained and then made available to be tutors in secondary schools if those schools wanted them. So there's an additional resource which would be available to them, and that would be around doing some sort of one-to-one tutoring, but also acting as a friend.
A mentor.
Yeah, and I think that I'm interested because I know that's at the Education Select Committee today as part of the NPP submission. So I'm really interested to see, what sort of traction that gets, because I think there needs to be something. Many schools won't need it, but there'll be some that may, and that is an available resource.
I think schools now, I mean, there's a lot of talk of when a school's going to open, as if schools are not open.
Yeah.
I don't know any schools. I know one school that's actually closed, but all the rest, as far as I'm aware, are open to vulnerable children and children workers. But I wonder now at what point the schools need to get themselves together, the leaders, to start thinking about, okay, we might not know the rules for children coming back, but what are the logistics that we need to go through to make sure that we're ready? And I think that's a challenge now that school leaders should be having, probably with the senior managers at least, starting to think through some of the problems, and then nothing catches them unawares when it does happen, whether it be July, September, whenever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I shared the paper on learning tutors with a couple of colleagues, and obviously that's a very big sort of national program. And one of the colleagues said, well, I'm looking at what's day one going to look like, what's first week going to look like, what's first month, first term, first year. Excuse me. And I thought that was a really good sort of approach to this, and senior leaders perhaps should be sitting down saying, well, if it is, June, how are we going to manage this? And actually, because they've got a voice, they're the risk assessors, aren't they, in their schools? So they need to be able to say to government, yeah, I know you want year 10s or year 6s or whatever, but that won't work for us. We need to focus in on this group because we can make that work, and it reduces the risk.
Yeah, and I'm trying to put my head around, it's almost like completely restarting a school. So there's a whole set of logistics, people that you might not be the first thought, crossing patrols, school transport, cleaners, cooks, all that side of things that you have to know is in place. And so there has to be some contact with those people to say, here's our potential starting date, or I will give you 3 days notice before. There's a lot of logistics in that before you even talk about the state the children and the staff are going to be in when they get in.
I agree, and I think that it'd be wrong, for senior leaders to think, particularly head teachers, principals, to think, well, I've got to come up with this plan. I mean, I've been struck by how little I know about how to clean schools, what's involved in school transport, what are the risks associated with that in moving children from, and particularly around special schools, for example. That sort of planning, I think is a useful activity, isn't it, to get all of those key players together, to connect them again, to do some, and it may well be people are doing that already and they need to publish that.
Oh, imagine they are. I mean, it's easy to sit back in my position now, not been ahead knows how long, all I'm thinking is what would I need to do now? And that will be one of the first things, to put together some sort of logistical plan that says who needs to be involved, when do they need to be involved, what do I need to confirm about their availability, and then a programme of when does everybody know. And then at least if we do get a shock announcement, which I can't see, but who knows, that schools will open on such a date, then at least we've got a plan that makes it look as though we know what we're doing and we can manage it.
Yeah, it is remarkable how schools have managed to cope, with such all of this. It's unbelievable how well they've done. And going forward, I certainly hope that there'll be greater respect for the profession, as there will be for the health and care services.
It depends how it's reported, Frank, because I've seen reports now in some press reports saying, schools have got to stop obstructing the way forward, and teachers have to be brave and get on with it, and all nonsense like that just doesn't take any account of what's actually going on in schools and potentially where the risks will be in schools.
Yeah, I think. I do understand the economic issues, but actually, we've got grandchildren now. I wouldn't want our grandchildren to be going back into a position whereby they could either pass this virus on or actually catch it themselves. And we're a vulnerable group. We're over 60. So I think that there are some major risks here, and I do feel slightly disconnected from the family because I'm not able to see them. And I do understand the pressure of wanting to see them, but I wouldn't want to see them or them see me if they ended up harming me or I harm them.
Yeah. So you can imagine that when you are getting, as a school leader, when you are getting your staff together, you've got all these emotions to deal with. Every single member of staff will have a different readiness to return or not ready, fears and anxieties, exhaustion, guilt, accusation, all grief. All those things, and as a leader, you won't know which members of staff are harbouring those things, and I think that's a key part to getting everybody back together. There's got to be some kind of get together where you share your stories.
But you that was saying to me last week that in football management, there are times, or in any crisis management, where things aren't going very well, and you just need to.
The wash down.
Yeah. What's it called? A wash down?
Wash down, yeah.
Yeah.
Get everything together and get it out.
Yeah.
I've managed that once in a particular situation. It's very difficult. It's very emotional. People get very upset. People get very angry. But actually, at the end of it, when you draw a line under it, you can actually draw a line under it, and you can refer back. If somebody then says, but remember, hang on, we've done that.
Yes.
We're now on the way forward.
I think also what this washdown does, if it involves everybody, within that school community, or at least a representative, then actually there is a sense of the community coming together to find the solution that works for them, rather than this top-down, you're going to open, this is the way it's going to be. I do think that local communities, of which a school is one, need to assert their authority, their understanding of the risks for their community.
Yeah.
Just because we're nearly getting to the end of this, is that one of the things that you mentioned before was around emotion, and I wondered whether, we've spoken before about a colleague who is a psychologist who's, perhaps there's some issues there that perhaps we could explore with him around, what the psychology of lockdown is, and what the potential impact on young people is going to be.
Yeah, I can certainly invite him. We can ask him if he would join next week, if that's something. Or
yeah, that'd be great. So who is it?
Dr. Mike Rotherham.
Right.
He's a performance psychologist, I think they call themselves now. But he works with elite athletes, but he's also worked with education for at least the last 15 years. Okay,
so should we focus then on the psychology of returning and the impact of lockdown and what?
And I think I know people throw this away as nonsense, but looking at their own psychological makeup, because unless you understand how you work, it's very difficult to understand and have empathy with how other people work. So I think part of what needs to happen now is people need to reflect on themselves and use some tools to sort of say, well, what am I like, and what do I respond, and why do I respond like that? Sure. There's plenty of books to look at that, but it's just something I think before we launch into different kinds of leadership, which always winds me up, we need to look at different kinds of people and the way your own psychology, your own preferences, your own mindset affects everybody else that you work with.
Great. Okay. Well, let's focus in on that for next week's podcast. If there is a second, I hope there is. I've enjoyed it. At least we've enjoyed it. I don't know if anybody else is going to watch it. But let's see if this is the first of a few. So we'll be back middle of next week, hopefully with podcast 2, YouTube video 2, whatever we're going to call it.
Yeah.
And hope to see those of you that are watching this, you come and join us again. Okay. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from
him.
Yeah. Okay. See you, Stan.
Cheers. Bye.